We've reached a point where our intelligence is highly evolved. Perhaps any intelligent species that reaches that point still maintains that competition within their DNA. And they compete within their species and against other species to the point where they wipe themselves out. Like I said at the start, there seems to be a thing that the brain changes fundamentally in a competitive state rather than a cooperative state. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do up a research brief. I'm going to plug that into AI, and I'm going to create a video from that. That'll pop out somewhere behind me when I
Welcome to
eventually
this
do the
explainer.
video.
Today, we're diving into something absolutely wild. It's a concept that literally bridges the massive, mind-bending scale of the cosmos right down to the tiny, microscopic neurons firing in your own head right now. It's a fascinating and honestly somewhat unsettling concept known as the competition paradox.
So here is the big existential question researchers are tossing around right now. Are we actually programmed to destroy ourselves? Seriously, think about it for a second. The exact same evolutionary drive to outlast, outsmart, and outcompete our rivals is what built our sprawling, complex technological civilization. But there's this growing concern in the scientific community that this very same competitive drive could actually be a cosmic trap. Let's find out why.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for today. First, 1. The Great Evolutionary Paradox. 2. Your brain on competition. 3. History's multipolar traps. 4. Modern-day arms races. 5. The power of cooperation. And finally, 6. Reframing your daily drive.
Section 1. The Great Evolutionary Paradox, a cosmic mystery. Just think about the sheer scale of the universe for a sec. Billions of galaxies, trillions of stars, countless planets sitting right there in the habitable zone. Statistically speaking, the cosmos should be absolutely teeming with advanced civilizations, right? But when we actually listen to the stars, we hear absolutely nothing, just an eerie, deafening silence. To understand this, we have to look at Robin Hansen's theory, the Great Filter. It's a hypothesis trying to explain this exact contradiction, which we know as the Fermi paradox. The Great Filter asks a pretty chilling question. Does high intelligence inherently lead to self-destruction? It challenges us to consider if advanced civilizations inevitably just consume themselves through competition and conflict long before they ever get the chance to become interstellar.
All right, Section 2. Your brain on competition, the micro-reality.
So, when you're just chilling in a relaxed, cooperative environment, your brain hangs out in a state called empathetic mentalizing, or theory of mind. In this state, you're deeply connected, you're collaborative, and you can easily pick up on what others are feeling. But man, the second you step into an active, competitive state, whether that's the last 2 minutes of a tied basketball game or a really tense workplace negotiation, your hardware literally shifts gears. It fires up threat appraisal networks and starts pumping these massive neuroendocrine surges, specifically cortisol and testosterone, right into your bloodstream. Basically, your body prepares for a fight. And here is the biological catch. Those hormonal surges completely narrow our cognitive scope. Biologically, this threat state prioritizes immediate reward dominance. It's an ancient survival trick designed to help you win the game right in front of you, like, escaping a predator. Absolutely vital for short-term survival. But in our complex, modern society, it functionally blinds us to long-term, big-picture, strategic cooperation. When we're competing, we're literally not wired to see the long view. We only see the immediate win.
Moving on to Section 3. History's multipolar traps, runaway traits, and collapses. The technical term for this phenomenon is evolutionary suicide, or Darwinian extinction. And yeah, it's a terrifying biological concept. It happens when natural selection heavily favors highly competitive traits in an individual. But, and here's the kicker, those exact same traits eventually destabilize the entire surrounding ecosystem, leading to population-wide collapse. It's basically the ultimate paradox, right? Winning the game on the individual level guarantees species-wide doom.
Okay, picture the extinct Irish elk. Because of sexual selection, these magnificent animals evolved absolutely massive, hyper-competitive antlers just to attract mates. And for the individual male, the advantage was incredible. The bigger the antlers, the more likely he was to pass on his genes. But over time, those runaway antlers grew so heavy and so wide that it literally became impossible for the elks to navigate dense forests or outrun predators when the environment started shifting. A massive evolutionary advantage literally became their tombstone.
We see the exact same thing in game theory with what researchers call multipolar traps. This is a scenario where individual actors act purely in their own self-interest, just to stay competitive. But by doing that, they create a collective dynamic that yields a total catastrophic outcome for everybody. It's the classic tragedy of the commons. Imagine a shared pasture where every single farmer adds just one more cow to maximize their own profit. Individually, it makes total sense, but collectively, the pasture gets destroyed and all the cows starve. Everyone is basically forced to play a losing game just to keep up.
This dynamic tragically played out in real life on Easter Island, or Rapa Nui. Rival clan structures basically fell into this runaway competitive investment. To show off social dominance and outcompete their neighbors, they accelerated forest clearance to build those iconic, increasingly massive moai statues. They were caught in a multipolar trap, chopping down the very last trees just to build a monument slightly bigger than the clan next door. That sheer unchecked drive triggered a total ecological breakdown and severe societal decline.
Which brings us to Section 4, Modern-Day Arms Races, the Modern Minefield. Now, bring that forward to today. If we look back just over the last century, this pattern is glaring. Mid-20th century, the Cold War locked us into mutually assured destruction, peak intelligence creating weapons capable of total extinction, driven entirely by intergroup dynamics. Then, by the 2010s, it morphed into the rapid rise of social media attention economies. Now, in the 2020s, we're witnessing massive AI technological arms races, and looming right there in the near future, intense resource scarcity and eco-anxiety. High-intelligence species consistently use their technological supremacy to lock themselves into these continuous, game-theoretic standoffs.
So why does this matter to you and me right now? Well, tech companies and nation-states are stuck in a classic trap. If they pause AI development for safety testing, they risk falling irreversibly behind their competitors. Meanwhile, social media algorithms are intentionally inducing artificial scarcity, creating zero-sum economies that just hijack our attention and pit us against each other. Even the way we talk about the environment is shifting from collaborative global stewardship toward defensive, localized hoarding. These modern environments artificially keep our brains locked in those chronic threat appraisal states we talked about earlier, creating exhausting micro-competition in our everyday interactions. I mean, is it any wonder we all feel so collectively burned out?
But before we get completely pessimistic, let's look at Section 5, the power of cooperation, the counter-argument.
So, are we just animals hopelessly destined to compete ourselves to the grave? Well, biological determinism would argue yes, that competition is just an inescapable genetic mandate, and we cannot transcend our deepest biological imperatives. But there's a competing view, and it's super fascinating. It's the super cooperators model. This model highlights that human civilization wasn't built by lone wolves fighting for scraps. No way. It was built on collective hunting, shared agriculture, and ultra-sociality. In fact, our unparalleled intelligence likely didn't evolve just to outcompete rivals in combat, but actually to navigate incredibly complex cooperative alliances.
And here is our ultimate trump card, the paradox of conscious intent. Look, we are not the Irish elk. Because of our high intelligence, we can actually see a multipolar trap coming a mile away, long before the final collapse occurs. We have the unique capacity to use our shared norms, our global institutions, and our moral reasoning to intentionally restructure the rules of the game. We can literally choose to stop playing the game that leads to self-destruction.
Finally, Section 6, Reframing Your Daily Drive, Individual Action and Wellness.
Okay, let's talk about you. How do you actually decouple from this existential burnout in your own daily life? First, practice state awareness and movement. Just try to notice that physiological shift when your heart rate spikes in a high-stress, competitive environment, and take a literal breath to center yourself. Second, decouple your self-worth from zero-sum framing. You honestly don't always have to win for someone else to lose. There is plenty of room for shared success. And third, cultivate active pro-social anchors. Get out there and engage in non-competitive, group-oriented activities. Consciously signal to your brain that you are safe, you're connected, and that not everything in life is a battle for survival.
This shift can be surprisingly simple. Think about your daily targets, whether you're at the office or hitting the gym. Ego-based targets, where you're tracking every single metric, comparing yourself to everyone else, and operating in zero-sum thinking, they just keep you locked in high stress. Instead, consciously try to shift toward mastery-based targets. This means competing against your past self, focusing on your own growth, and, actually enjoying open awareness play. Doing this radically mitigates the cognitive fatigue and anxiety that comes from being stuck in persistent, exhausting competitive states.
So I'm going to leave you with one final, powerful thought.
You have the incredible evolutionary gift of conscious intent. The question is, will you use it to blindly compete until collapse, or will you cooperate to rewrite the rules of the game? Definitely something to chew on the next time you feel that overwhelming urge to win at all costs. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.
You want to be glad that you can't see down here because I'm wearing gumboots and boxer shorts, but I just had an epiphany in the shower. It occurred to me after creating this research brief and having AI create the video that us humans are pretty well screwed unless we manage to curb or get rid of our competitive instincts. It's a really strange thing for a person who's a HPE teacher to say. Hey, Alfie.